Hey everyone, welcome to the voboss podcast and the Boss Money Talks series. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, and I am so excited to bring back to the show money girl Danielle Famble to the show.
Hey,
Danielle.
glad to be back.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. You know, it is that time of the month, and
Yeah?
I'm talking about that financial time of the month.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, I know what that sounded like, but anyways, it's that financial time of the month where I have to pay my the people that work for me, and so I have to pay my employees. Do I call them employees? My contractors, my virtual assistants, whatever that I have, or whatever you may have, bosses out there that help you to run your business, and I highly, highly recommend them because they can really help you to grow. But it is something that financially I need to make sure that I account for it. And so I thought it'd be a great topic to talk about in our episode, because I know a lot of voice talents and that are either they don't want to do marketing or they don't want to do social media, and so they're hiring assistants, and they really need to know how to account for this financially in their businesses.
Yeah, no, this is a really important topic because what you're talking about is being an employer, being responsible for the people who are helping you grow the business that you have created, and that's a really big responsibility. So not only is it about like accounting for it, but it's also making sure that you mentally are prepared for all the things that entail that comes with being an employer. So yes, being ready for the financial implications every single month is really important, but also what are you wanting your employees to help you do, contractors, whomever. Yeah. And there's a designation there. It depends on, if they are specifically working for you and you've onboarded them in, from a tax perspective. But if they are a freelancer, then a contractor, and there are different ways that you have to kind of deal with that.
Oh, you know what? I love that you brought up the fact that not only like financially, right, we have to figure out, okay, first of all, we're going to be outsourcing things in our businesses, and we will be paying as an employer or as a contract, whatever, we'll be paying somebody. And so also the fact financially, we need to be responsible, but also as a boss, right? As a VO boss, you need to be a boss. And so there's also not just financial implications, but also, are you ready to be a boss? And really, what are the criteria? What are the qualifications for people that you bring on board that can help you to grow your business to be successful financially and, growth-wise?
Yeah, I think you also need to take a look inward before you become a boss of someone else, is really to figure out, is there something for them to do consistently? What do you want this person to help you with? What are the tasks? And being able to train them on those tasks so that whenever they are doing whatever it is that you have them doing in your business, they know how to do it, you know how to do it, and you know if it's being done correctly or incorrectly, and there's some feedback that needs to be given. So really knowing that, but also understanding that when you bring someone into your business, when you become a boss, you're responsible for, in a way, their livelihood. And I take that responsibility seriously because I know before I became a boss, before I was running this business, I know what it feels like to be sort of at the whim of your employer. And it can kind of be a bit of a vulnerable position. So you get to decide what kind of boss you want to be when you are, the VO boss of your own business.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that up. It is something that you're right. You need to look inward. You need to really take consideration. If you've never been a boss of someone else, there are lots of different aspects to it and how to be a good boss, right? And so financially, I'm going to say that number one, if you've worked in the corporate world at all, and I say this so many times, like we want to be appreciated for what we do, right? We want to feel that maybe we can make contributions to the companies in which we work. And if we are not getting that happiness or that joy or that satisfaction, then typically we look elsewhere, or we're like, I got to get out of the corporate world. I just want to do voiceover. So the same thing when you're an employer, right? You're a VO boss, and you have some somebody that's working for you, you want to make sure that number one, you're paying them a fee that is, I think, something that motivates them, inspires them, is fair, right? Compensation, and you're not just trying to get somebody because you don't have a ton of money and so I can't afford to pay you a whole lot. I really look at it differently. I'm like, you're right. This is someone's livelihood. They're depending on this, the salary or whatever it is you're paying them, this little stipend, for their livelihood. And a lot of times they're freelancers themselves, if you happen to, hire within the voiceover community, or if not, it is a portion of their income. So you want to be a good boss, number one, financially. You want to make sure that they're getting paid fairly, that they're getting paid, I would say, competitively for what they do, like if they're social media, if they're doing accounting, if they're doing whatever they're doing, you want to make sure that they're getting paid a fair fee, because you want to make sure they want to work for you and they want to be part of the team. That is a whole mental thing, right? You want them to work their best for you so that you can grow together. And so I think that's one thing to take into consideration. You're paying them fairly. And then also you're willing to manage them, because these are living human beings.
Yep.
And there are emotions at play, right?
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things that come into being a good boss.
And I love that you talked about managing them, because really a huge step really comes from you being the person who is working your business, to managing and overseeing other people who are taking on those tasks. Again, this whole thing really is like a huge mental shift, because you need to now be able to articulate what it is that you are looking for, how to give feedback to that person and receive feedback. Because once the person that you've hired becomes the one who's responsible for this task, they will likely become better at it than you were, because they're spending more time doing it than you did. And so maybe hearing and receiving feedback on a different way to go about this task, for example, might actually be better. But do you want to just stick with what you said and how you went about, growing the business to bring them on in the first place? Or do you want to take that feedback from them? And it really is about how much do you want to micromanage or not micromanage at all? And a huge part of it is also creating and crafting the vision for your business. Where are you going? Because you now, the boss, you're the leader, and you're sharing this vision, and the people are helping, you're growing together, as you said. I
Exactly.
love that.
And you want them to be motivated and inspired to help you achieve that vision, especially for those of you that work in the corporate world, right? How much, if you sit back and think about it, how much did you really care if you were helping the company to grow, right? Was it just a salary for you, or were you invested in it? And I think that the happier, for me personally, the happier I was at my job, the more involved I was in being proud of what I had to contribute and being proud in seeing the company do well. And to me, that was when I was happiest. And that's how I want my employees to be. I want them to be happy to watch us grow together and to be proud to be part of that vision. And a lot of that absolutely requires, number one, that I pay them fairly and give them bonuses for jobs well done, which I actually do.
100%.
To keep them motivated. And also very much what you said, listen and be open for feedback. Not just giving orders or saying, here, do this, but listening to them if they're inspired and motivated to want to help grow the business. And I'm so fortunate to have a wonderful team that works with me, that they've been working with me. And I think I can proudly say that, I have had two people that have worked for me for over 5 years, if not coming up on 8 to 10 years of working with me.
Amazing.
So I needed to every year make sure that I was, keeping them inspired and motivated and happy, and giving them compensation when they're due. Like, I'll give them, oh, you know what? I really appreciate that job that you did. Here's a $100 Amazon gift certificate. And that also requires, when you're an employer, you have to be comfortable with paying people. I mean, I think there's a whole mental thing about that, right? It's like, oh my God, you have to be confident enough in your business so that you're not worried about money all the time, so that you can, I know that I'm going to have the money to pay my employees every month. Like, you have to just have that confidence, right? I will have the money to pay.
Yeah.
And you have to secure those systems in place, right? So that you can pay.
Yeah. Because it's not, I mean, it can be for some VO bosses out there, like a one-time thing. I have this one task and that, make it a contract thing. And once it's done, it's done. But when we're talking about having assistance or help that is helping on an ongoing basis, that means ongoing pay. And, to your point, when I was working in the corporate world, to be honest with you, I was happiest when I was making the type of money that would allow me to live the life that I wanted to live. And,
Good point.
I wasn't really thrilled about anything else other than how it affected my life, and money affects my life in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
So it's really just making sure that you can keep people fairly and fair in their compensation, but also make sure that you're paying on time. I like to get paid on time for the work that I've done, and making sure that you can pay on time. And to your point, it's making sure that you have the resources and the money and the revenue coming into your business, so that paying your assistants is not a monthly freak out moment.
Exactly. That's so important.
Yeah.
And I like how you said that, yes, it was all about, like, money was something, whatever that made you comfortable, right? That you were being paid and being compensated and on time, and, to the point where that's what made you, want to work for that company, being paid well. And also, I will say, back in my younger days, I was being paid well, and I had the bonus that I was really proud of how I was contributing to the company, and I really believed in the company. So that was like such an added bonus. And actually, I think that it really said a lot for, like, why I was in the career I was in for that length of time, because I was happy both compensation wise and also, like, motivation wise and purpose wise. So I do feel that when you have assistants, if you want to, let's say, have them for any period of time, maybe you're just hiring them for one job and it's one and done. But if you do want to have them on an ongoing basis, there's also a whole relationship that becomes important for you to develop with them, so that they look forward to their doing whatever they're doing, for you, and it's not just a boring, job that doesn't give them any joy. So whatever you can do to make that joyful for them and make them want to continue to work for you and want to continue to grow the business. Financially wise, it is a thing that I do every month. I have them send me invoices, and I have different people that I pay at different times of the month.
Sure.
And so I want to make sure that I'm paying them I want to make sure that I'm paying them in a way that I'm not like PayPal, where fees get taken out. So it's pretty much bank to bank sort of transaction wise. And when I do that also, it's important to have my accountant who knows what I'm paying, because, technically speaking, right? And we were just talking about this earlier. If I pay over a certain amount to someone, I do need to declare that on my taxes. So having a good bookkeeper / accountant that can understand, okay, this money is being used to pay my employees.
Yeah. And we talked about this earlier, is how does your bookkeeper or accountant account for the services that's happening? So these are business expenses. These are business services that they are providing, and you are paying for the service of having
like
someone, run your business.
They're like a vendor so like that's a question. So can you really say they're an employee if they're an independent contractor? Not really, right? Because independent contractor is more like a vendor for you.
Sure.
And for, I think, most of us, that for me, that's what it is. I don't actually employ someone where I'm paying health benefits or anything like that. So
exactly.
I want to make that distinction, where I'm not that type of corporation where I'm paying somebody full time and they're getting health benefits. I am paying an independent contractor, but I still also have to account for that.
Exactly.
To the IRS.
Yeah, and most most VO bosses will probably find themselves in a similar position. I also am, have essentially a vendor, a contractor who I'm not paying their health insurance and pension and things like that, as we did when we were working, in the corporate world. So it's a different distinction, but it also requires the level of bookkeeping and making sure that you know how much you've paid them throughout the course of the year, so that you can get them the correct tax form at the end of the year. And that means working with an accountant or working with a financial professional who can help you do that, unless you feel super confident in doing it yourself. But if you're running a business, in my opinion, and you are paying someone to help you run your business, another part of that is paying someone to help you keep track of the finances of your business. And it all works together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that ongoing education for your contractors or employers is important.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of, first of all, I make sure that I meet with my people, at least my assistants that do the majority of, let's say, my social media work or, marketing work, that sort of thing. I make sure that we meet once a week, actually, and that works for us in our business. But I don't necessarily meet with my audio editor, at all. That's usually done through email. And then, after a month's worth of podcast audio editing, he'll send me an invoice. But anybody that's doing work for me that requires a little bit more than just audio editing, that might require, helping me grow my business out there on social media, which I think is important, that they know me and they know what I'm looking for, and that I can specify that. And I don't like to micromanage at all, because frankly, I'm busy. And so it takes some time to get the right employee, right? That you trust, right? To handle things. I think that's a control freak like me. In case anybody didn't realize that, A-type personality, for me to give up power and just say, go ahead, please do this for me, and be okay with that was a big step for me as an employer, because I'm very much a control freak. I very much said, well, I can't hire somebody to do it because I'm the only one that can do it.
They're not going to do it as well as I do.
Exactly. And you have to give up. That's a big mental aspect. You have to give that up, because there are people who are better than you at certain things, and why not, right? Hire someone like we talked about with a financial, an accountant or bookkeeper, right? Why not hire somebody that's what they love to do and that's all they do? I want people that are better than me doing things for my business to grow my business. So you've got to give up that ego, the fact that nobody but you can do it right. You have to really place trust in your employees, because when you do that, and you hire people that are better than you, that's what's going to grow your business.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a huge part of that is communication. As you said, you meet with your team, once a week. I also have
in
a
person.
weekly...
Well, not in person. I shouldn't say. On Zoom. Like Zoom. Like a Zoom. I don't just text back and forth. Although I do text a lot of times, but we meet once on a Zoom meeting. On a Zoom meeting.
I also, with my assistant, we meet every once a week on a Zoom call, and then we use Slack to communicate. And so we communicate via Slack every single day. And at the end of our meetings, I always say, if you need anything, I'll be in Slack. I mean, it's the way to get to me as quickly as possible.
I love Slack.
But we are, we talk every single day, and the more communication, actually, the better, because then that person gets to know you, and they can kind of hear your voice and your tone of voice and how you're wanting things done. They get to know your style, how you give feedback, and that open communication actually really just helps person to person. I mean, you're dealing with, in some ways, hopefully, a human being who can really start to craft what they do to who you are, because this is a brand about your personality, about your voice, about your style. So, it's huge.
Yeah, and I really do feel that I make it a point to express my appreciation frequently to my assistants, because they're like my right hand people in reality, and I'm always like, oh God, I appreciate you guys, thank you so much. I'm always making sure to do that, because again, I want them to feel appreciated, and it's a thank you goes a long way.
Yeah, it does.
to really having employees work their best for you, which is what you want. I mean, you're investing money in your employees as well as your business, right? So you want to make sure that your investment, it is going to pay off for you. And now here's the question: what if you hire someone that is not necessarily working out well for you? What are your best tips for that? Because that's happened to me too, and that's not always easy as a boss.
It is not always
to fire
easy,
someone.
and it is a very real possibility. Whenever you bring anyone into your business, as a contractor, as a one-time, gig work, whatever. Whenever you bring someone in, it's a very real possibility that it doesn't work. So I think before you bring that person in, have a very clear understanding, write it down, I would even say, with what it is that you are looking for, what are the checks, and how do you know if this person is working or not working? Have the metrics so that you can say, hey, this is what I'm hoping to accomplish, this is what I need, and you know if that person has it or not.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point, because when you say write it down, so everybody that works for me has to sign an NDA, right? Number one, and they have a contract. Like, I have a statement of work. Here's what I expect. Here's what you'll be paid. Here are like the terms, and you can actually create that NDA or that contract fairly simply. I have a lawyer that I hire all the time, but and there are templates out all over the place. But that kind of keeps me, I feel, legally secure, so that, let's say I'm discussing something, about growing my business that I don't want them to go out and then implement, which is always like an issue when you hire people within the same industry, because if they work for you and then you discuss ideas like, here's how I want to grow my business, what's, to stop them from necessarily taking those ideas and implementing for their own business. And sometimes, I'm not saying that I'm completely possessive, but there were cases where I hired, a long time ago, I hired somebody to work on development of this podcast. And there were a lot of ideas that were flying around about how to grow, which then, after the person did not work out for me, ended up somehow being implemented by them. And so, that's just one of those things, I think, to safeguard your own business and your personal brand, you need to have a contract in place.
Absolutely. I think having a contract in place, again, you're running a business. And so doing the things that businesses do to keep themselves safe, contracts are a huge part of it. NDAs are a huge part of it. Sometimes I have to sign an NDA in order to audition.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And so
right?
there needs to be that sort of level of secrecy and security.
Absolutely.
So that's incredibly important, and making sure that the person understands why. And understands like what they're signing is incredibly important as well. So there are so many layers to it, not just, oh, I need help with my marketing, let me just bring somebody in. Right. It goes deeper than that. And to your point of if it doesn't work out, have the off ramp. How do you offload this person from your business? How do you offboard them? And understanding like, what does that look like? And it needs to take time. But before you get to that point, I would ask the VO boss themselves, if it didn't work out, why? If it's a personality thing, completely understand. That happens too, because personality traits, as you're working with someone, you need to be able to work with that person. But if it didn't work out because they weren't doing things correctly, did you train them correctly? Really understanding like your role in it, because as the boss, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are running the business, your business, the way that you want it to be run, and it needs to be run. If the people that you brought into your business are not living up to your expectations, did you set the right expectations?
Right.
Did you communicate those expectations to them? Did you provide feedback on those expectations? And then did you give consequences for what is going to happen if those expectations are not met?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is like employer 101 right there. Absolutely. And that's covering yourself. And you want to make sure that you've covered yourself, because your assistants have potential access to your life. I mean, a lot of times, like, they'll have passwords to social media accounts. They might have passwords to my accountant has the password to my QuickBooks. I mean, my gosh, and essentially that could be very damaging if that person was not, ethical, right? And so there's a lot at stake for you. Passwords, personal accounts, branding. I mean, just so many things that you're going to entrust them with. And I realize that as an employer, again, as I said, if you're that type of person that says, well, if I can't, I'm the only one that can do it correctly, or I'm worried about that, that is a mental thing that you will have to step back and take a look at if you want to hire somebody, and make sure that if that is the case now, you want to make sure that you're protected. And so that requires NDAs, that requires contracts. And again, mine were not difficult. Just a consult with a lawyer that had me fine tune a template for a contract for working for me. Worked, and all I have to do when I hire somebody else is just change the amount they're getting paid, and change the name, and change the address, and then have them sign it before you start giving them access to your life and your business, because that is sacred to you.
Yeah, and it's a vulnerable thing. Like you are putting yourself knowingly in a vulnerable position where other people know intimate details about your life and your business.
Yep.
However large or small you want to give out that information.
Yeah.
And if you are not prepared for that mentally going into it, it's a really hard transition to make when that person is actually there. So I would say, really ask yourself, are you mentally prepared to be a boss of other people? Are you financially prepared to pay them, and the finances not be a thing that stresses you out? Because the entire process is quite a lot. And are you ready to manage? Are you ready to share your vision and make sure that your vision is being executed by other people? That's not just you.
All good stuff. And in the end, guys, I promise you, it may be scary, but I'll tell you what, it's worth it. And it's the only way I believe that I could have grown my business to the point that it has grown, and to allow me the freedom to, I'm a little bit of a serial entrepreneur, and I think, Danielle, you probably are too. And so it's been the only way that I've been able to really do the things that I want to do in my businesses, to progress and move forward. And it's taught me a lot. Being a boss, like being a VO boss, number one, just in my voiceover career, but also being an actual boss, has taught me so much about myself, and helped me to grow personally as well as professionally. So it's just I think it's a win-win. It's a challenge, and it's scary, but it's so worth it.
Oh man, I couldn't agree more. You learn so much about yourself when you are now responsible for other people.
Yeah.
I'm not a parent, but I can imagine there's a very humbling sense when you become a parent that you are now responsible for this other person, and you have to think about yourself and them in a different way.
Yeah.
Similarly with business, you learn so much about yourself, your capacity to lead, your desire to lead, your generosity, all of those things, when you have someone else that you are, bringing into this thing that you created, your business. It is a journey. It is something that you will run into. You'll run into adversity. You will have to figure it out, and then you learn about yourself, like how you're able to do that. And once you learn those things about yourself, the next hurdle may be just around the corner, but that you've been able to do it in the past. So that resilience, really, that muscle builds up.
Oh yeah.
It's totally worth it. I would not be able to have the business that I have if I was responsible for doing everything, because you can only do but so much with the amount of time that you have.
You're only so many hours exactly in a day. So, I love this conversation. Thank you so much, Danielle.
Yeah, this is great. I love it.
Conversation with me. Bosses, I'm going to give a big shout out to our sponsor, IPDTL. You too can be a boss. Find out more at IPDTL.com. You guys have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.